leadership in her field. Recently, she was also awarded the Women in AI Leadership by Analytics India magazine for being an AI advocate with her expertise in data science. She is also a part of IBM Worldwide Women Executive Council and drive various diversity initiatives within and outside IBM. So, without further ado, I would like to call our guest speaker to take in charge of the screen.
Thank you, Aisha, for introducing myself. Welcome, everyone, and I'm hoping I'm not going to bore you to death, given this, session is after lunch. So I will share a few slides, which will give us, few talking points, so that we can, talk through that. Somebody just confirm me that you can see my slide deck.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so as Aisha mentioned, I've been with various companies in my 22 years of experience, and my journey has been though I did civil engineering from NIT Patna back in maybe what 25 more than 25 years back, or 23 24 years back. I have, I didn't pursue my, further into anything into civil engineering. And I'll talk about why and other things. And then we will talk about, some of the trends that we see now in software engineering, and, where the whole IT and the market is going. And towards end, I'm hoping we have time, though we probably have spent 10 minutes, but I'm hoping we have time, then we can, go through questions. I'm hoping that all of you can still reach me on the LinkedIn and other things, so we can always connect on that in case we do not reach out or connect on the questions or chats today. So as I said, I'll be covering today a little bit about myself and covering more on the software engineering trends. What are the next big thing that we see, next 10 years or next decade is kind of going to show us. Since, every 5 years there's new things happening, the technology changing, I don't know if we can have any predictions for next 10 years is also going to hold strongly. So a little bit about myself. I am born and brought up in Patna. I did all my studies in Patna. I passed out from St. Joseph's Convent, went to Science College, and then NIT Patna. With the intention that my parents were very specific about me being in Patna. But as soon as I completed my engineering, my next intent was to try out something different. I wrote a few examinations about various companies who were trying to, and this was around 1998 99, where the in IT had started to boom in India, and I wrote a few exams in various companies, cleared the exams, and then that's how I got into software engineering. So I did move to Bangalore, where I got my first job in a software company. And immediately after doing my engineering, and did a few I think a 3-month course or something, which we used to be called the crash courses at that point of time. But not that they would teach you anything, but at least they would give you a degree allowing which you could kind of go and apply in the universities and say, oh, I know Java, or I know C++ and all that. But not that it helps you anywhere in your career, but I wouldn't I would still question those degrees. But yeah, so then post completing my degree, I'm completing my degree and getting my first job. I did various roles in a couple of 2-3 companies. I traveled a lot for first few years, and then I at some point I got an IBM. In IBM, I've been working since now 16 years, and in 16 years I've done various roles in IBM. In Bangalore, and again, I have been in and out, as a part of IBM, also in some of the other parts of the world. And now, lately, I think with my role and other things that I'm trying to do, of course, I started as a software developer, Java developer, and I did a lot of things. I did engineering. I did architecture, management. Lately, my focus has been on the data part, because all these roles that I've done in various different products and engineering that I've developed in my last 20 plus years of experience have been in and around the data. So data scientist or data science was a natural interest area that I started to have in last couple of years. And I try to get more and more interest on that, and that's where I've been lately been more and more focused on trying to help my team build products in and around using data science and machine learning. And then things around that, which is about how do we manage the data, how do we improve the data, what is the quality of the data, and how do we make the data ready for AI and machine learning, and then challenges that we have with AI and machine learning, and how do we develop products around them. um, the second thing that I am very passionate about is, and that's the reason why I also reached out to Dr. Shellender, is I wanted to reach out and reach out to, of course, my university and my college. I wanted to help people, see and grow in any way that I can. So, mentoring has been a strong, important for me, because I've had very good mentors in my own life, in my own career journey, and I'm definitely interested in to see if I can mentor more and more people and help them in growing in their career. So that's been very, very important. The third thing which I am very passionate about is what are the things that we can do to make society a little better. So I'm a very animal friendly person. I have 2 pets at my home, and I have 5 pets on street, which I take care of, and a lot of work that I do with the, specifically the dogs in and around Bangalore. So that's typically a little bit about me, and a little bit about my journey till now. Um, I think I just wanted to, bring these pictures because these pictures remind me, and I know you guys are so lucky to see this college, but every day. Maybe not now, but So I mean, I find our college is the most beautiful college in terms of the architectural importance, in terms of the way it's built. I'm hoping it is still now because I haven't visited it since few years. And it is an old college, and though our when I was in the college, it was not one of those the best managed and best we didn't have too much of campuses. We did, even though the best of the branches would not get campusing and all of that, so it was struggling at that point of time. So I'm so happy that it has revived, and it is doing far better, and I hope it will continue to do far better in terms of placement and other educational courses that are there in the college. So hoping that I'm literally definitely very proud, because I it did give me an engineering degree, which is useful. um, so, moving on to the topic that we are there for today, I think the two biggest transformation trends that is going to drive anything that we are going to do with software engineering is going to be the digitalization and the IoT. And and there are reasons why you don't see a lot of AI, ML, cloud, and all that here, because those are more for technology for me. But these are the trends that will drive development in those technologies. Now, the reason why I say digitalization is, and I'm sure you've heard all about this, and probably nothing new because you guys are all smart and much more connected. But I'll give my perspective, and why I think the digitalization and the IoT are the two most important thing, and everything else is probably an aspect that comes out of this. From a digitalization perspective, and given I'm very, very closely associated with the financial banking and regulatory bodies around the banking, where how banks manage their core banking systems, how banks manage any of the fraud that could happen in the banking system, how are the compliances which are imposed by, for example, RBIs in India, or some of the other regulatory bodies that could be in different government. It was so confidential in each and every bank, and it was so their own enterprise, where they would not go out to share any of these applications and other things outside, and they wanted to do it in their on-premise infrastructure. They would have everything in their IT organization, everything would be inside. And 4 years or 5 years down the earlier, if we would go and talk about cloud to them, nobody would listen about it, right? And they would say, oh, no, every data. I mean, forget India, right? Even worldwide. If I go to, like, for example, in a Bank of America is one of our biggest customers of our product. If I even go to Bank of America and say, oh, you can, can you bring in, the way we do, transactions, or, the way we do all this interbank transfers are, these are all like little bit on the customer side, but more on the enterprise side, or more on the internal banking applications and other part, right? How their banking systems interact with each other. They would not like to put it on the cloud. And they would invest too much on their internal IT systems. They would spend a lot of money and all of that to manage some of that. And we would say, oh, give it to us and we can manage it for you. Nobody would listen about it. But now the whole, trend has changed, right? Not only the systems that are exposed to the external customers. For example, you as an account holder, you probably can log on and do the retail banking piece of it. But think about the corporate bank, think about the loans, think about, other parts of the banking organization. Those were still very much, internally managed by the banks. Now, the trend has changed in the way that banks want to invest less and less in their own internal IT and get these to cloud. So, things which were, not even being talked about and discussed 5 years back are being, they are like on a fast track. So and the reason, of course, one reason, of course, we all know and we have all seen is pandemic. So, starting, sometime mid of the year, we have been so active in this whole discussions that we have been having with a lot of financial organizations to see how every banking organization, for example, has this journey that they are trying to create, that how can they create more and more digitalization? How can they put things on the cloud? And how can they expose things more and more so that, and so, so that it is much more, it does not have, it can be accessed by people who can work from anywhere, work remotely, do not have to come into the bank to manage some of these and all of that. So I think that, though, pandemic did a lot of bad things for us, some of these realizations have happened a lot more faster had this not happened. Already in the other walks of life, I think I told about much more of an enterprise use case where we're seeing the digitalization, right? But you see a lot more day-to-day aspects of your life, right? So you must be using a lot more, Big Basket. You must be using a lot more Swiggy instead of going to the restaurants. You must be using a lot of, what else, I mean, since, if you wanted to learn any of the music instruments or do any courses or any of those things, right? So you are looking at more and more, digitalized aspects of that, right? So courses which are online, courses which are digital. How can you get engaged in those courses? So, being anywhere, you should be able to engage in those courses and complete those courses. So, all these things are kind of leading to a state where, the crux of everything is how soon we can get everything to digitalization. Now, the aspect, and of course, the deliveries of anything and everything, right? Medical deliveries, I think even to an extent where your, doctor consultation with the doctor is also digitalized to a large extent, right? So all the initial stuff that you would spend a lot of time, going to the hospitals and taking an appointment and all of that has been much more simplified. If there are small issues, you can talk to the doctor remotely, get a prescription, you're done. So, I mean, I think, so, if anybody is, looking at the next 10 years, I think if you're planning to become an entrepreneur or if you're trying to take, any engineering role in any of the organization, or even trying to do any other organization, like, wherever you want to do, I think this will be an important aspect in each and every industry. It will be an important aspect in government. It will be an important aspect in banking. It will be an important aspect in education. It will be an important aspect in each and everything. I think already with the government, we are running a lot of courses, right? A lot of programs right now. Even IBM is running a lot of programs right now, where we said that, where we are working on digitalization aspect. The income tax, I think Infosys were working on the income tax. Of course, there was other issues, but, they are working on digitalizations of that aspect. I know IBM is working strongly on education part of it. We recently revamped 10th and 12th computer science courses to include data science and AI in those CBSE education. So there are a lot of such initiatives also happening, which are kind of allowing students to study from anywhere. So government is also very, very heavily invested in all the projects that are leading to the digitalizations of things, right? And there are a lot of other projects as well, right? Like the RERA, or RTOs and everything that is getting digitalized, which you already hear from in the news. So I think learn in thinking about what we can digitalize more, what we can, new business ideas around these things are, will come up and will keep coming up in next few years, which will, cause some of, the changes in the way we operate. Is coming up because we are changing some of the ways that we are operating, right? And then the other thing that I always think that is super, super important for all of us is a very connected field, but but very important is the Internet of Things. And the reason why I call this Internet of Things is because the fact that we want everything to be connected, right? Right now, there are a lot of things, and it's not just from an IT perspective. It's from an appliance perspective. It's from the the infrastructure perspective. It's from the connectivity perspective, and and we can think about applications talking to applications, different instruments talking to different and so on and so forth. Like you have seen like very, very simple things, right? Very basic things. I don't think we have even scratched the surface, because we are seeing only things like, okay, your car can talk to your mobile, and mobile can, probably have an application that talks to your various appliances at home. But I think there's like this huge, area there to investigate and find out what else we could do there, and, how we can, change some of the things that we are, looking at from an IoT perspective. And all of these things are kind of, connected. Like, when you're looking at IoT, you would want things on the cloud, right? So that, things can be accessed, so you can build more and more applications, you will connect more and more applications. So, it's again an aspect of digitalizations. But there could be, different things that's kind of coming out of, the use cases in terms of way that you look at Internet of Things could be different. So those were the two biggest trends that is going to drive the way that we see the software engineering from that perspective. Now, from the technology trends, right? So those were more of like, what are we going to, see from an aspect of change that comes in because our behaviors have changed. So those are from a business perspective. From a technology perspective, what are the things that will help those changes to happen, right? So the first thing, I guess, everybody's aware of, like cloud hosting, right? So everything will move more and more to cloud, where people can access data much more easily. People can access applications and APIs and everything a lot more easily, and maintaining those cloud applications will become very, very important. So look at how you think. Like, for example, you're booking, you have a Uber application, Uber app, or I don't know what's the most important application that you guys use, but for me, Uber, I'll take an example of Uber, right? So it's an application that is on your mobile. It's hosted somewhere. You are sending data. Data is coming out. It goes down. Somebody raises a ticket. How do I go and somebody is sitting as a somebody is looking at those tickets, trying to fix certain things. Get the instance back and up and running. If there's delays or anything in terms of because there are too many requests or too many users using the system, how does cloud kind of takes care of spawning new containers and new environments, so that the number of the number of users do not feel the delay in terms of their activity. And then security and other things, like if I am logged in, then I see only what I can see versus another user logged in, and all of those things, right? So I mean, there are a lot of things around the cloud hosted applications that kind of comes here, which is just around how I host an application in the cloud, right? So you have security, you have managing the containers and the environments, so that the containers do not go down, the number of users are increasing, how do I manage that, all of that stuff. So, that's like, a big new trend, and there's always, architectures and other things, a lot of engineering and a lot of technology developments happening to make it much more simplified and faster and all of that. We see these trends changing a lot. And nowadays, I think in my fifth bullet, I talk about serverless computing as well, which is, you can, for example, if you are on AWS or Azure, you can just build up an app and host it there and say, give it whatever it needs, right? So you don't have to worry about how much, what is the number of users that will use this application, what is the amount of usage, what is the amount of CPU, a RAM, anything that is required by that. And if you are using the serverless computing aspect of AWS or Azure or even IBM, then the infrastructure layer will take care of it, and it will keep on spawning environments based on the number of users and other things. So there's a lot of advancement that's kind of happening, and it's kind of a completely stream in itself, where you kind of understand about core operating systems and other things, and how containers and environments where you can manage some of that. The second thing, I guess, it's kind of a no-brainer. Everybody understands that AI and machine learning is going to be the next big, is already actually the bigger we're already seeing a lot of that already happening, right? So any application that you talk about has some level of AI and machine learning at this point infused into it. Now, it was probably a little bit, it could be a statistical modeling, it could be a machine learning, or it could be AI, it depends upon what the use cases are. But I think in a big way, everybody is kind of working on infusing more and more AI and machine learning into whatever is being built. 5-6 years back, call center used to be like this, like everybody was having a call center, and in India was a big hub of that. I don't think that era will come back ever again. Why? Because we've most of it has been replaced by chatbots, and smart bots and other things, right? Which can do a lot of the work that the call centers used to do at that point of time. And you can you don't have to have a person sitting to respond to any calls, and you have to rely on the telephone connections and so on and so forth. And then there's this whole self-learning capability that you're building using AI and machine learning algorithms, right? So if the same questions are the machines are learning again and again. So if you're feeding in if the customer is asking you 10 questions or 20 questions, and every time you're answering the same 10-20 questions, your machine learning bots are kind of getting trained at the same time, and they become smarter and smarter. So you don't have to do the usual task of training the call centers with the way you used to train people, right? There's a new version that has come up, so everybody has to learn. Of course you will do all that, but the self-learning was not happening, which is what kind of starts happening right now. So that has been very, very significant. Even I think I mean, the things like, even applications or mobile apps, which you couldn't even think of would use AI and machine learning, like Uber and Big Baskets and other. I do believe that they use a lot of that, because, they can predict at any time things around, what will be the availability, what will be among so many customers, based on the locations, based on, based on the cities that they serve, like, what is available, what's not available, and the predictability of some of the things that would be available. Ubers can detect the traffics and other things pretty accurately. So, think about a taxi service using a AI and machine learning capability. So that's where we are right now, that each and everything will be embedded with these types of, learning. So, that's another stream that, that's becoming, that's a trend that is very, very prevalent. Low code, no code platforms. I think this has been again something that has been catching up very quickly. The reason being that I think coding is not something. I think we are finding everybody is not a great likes to code, right? I think if I look at the there would be like in a batch of 20 students, probably 5 or 10, would be really, really interested in coding, which is like they're really good at coding. So, and moreover, not everybody can code, like, probably in a population of 100, probably 5 people would like to code. I mean, that even may be a very random number. So, in order to develop applications and, make it friendly for everybody else, you have more and more people who are like users of the system. You would like to use the system like Uber, like the way you're using Uber, or maybe develop another. For example, if you have used AWS, right? There are a lot of applications that are there, and you can customize or make few changes into the application and create your own um, app out of that. Or I think there are these white hat junior courses, right, where they say that you can teach coding to standard sixth and fifth and sixth students, or even third and fourth students. And what they do typically there is not much, right? So they give you some drag and drop tools, and they say, okay, you connect this, you connect this, you connect this, you connect this, and you've built an app, right? So what is that saying? And you would feel like, oh, I've generally created an app, and I can sell this, right? But that's a good use case, right? Because that could help a lot of advancement. And that's what this low code no code platforms are, which is I make coding simplify. Like, I can give you widgets, I can give you ways in which you can build what you need a lot more simpler. It's like if you have seen cat tools or something like that, right? You say, get me a window, get me a door, get me this, get me that, and I build that all together, and here is how your house looks like, right? So something like that. So more and more ideas around where we need automation, maybe where we need some of those types of tools are gaining a lot importance. And there are a lot of companies which allow horizontal layer where they provide a lot of widgets, a lot of APIs, a lot of services, and you can build pick a industry, and you can build applications and other things and automations around some of that. So that's another field. Like if you think you can think about what applications you want to build, pick up some good platforms like those, and think about what you want to build also. User experience design, I guess this has been there for a few years right now. I think Apple is the best example for that. I think it was a trendsetter in the way we use our Apple mobiles right now. Everything that you see there has been I believe it's been designed, to make your usage perfect, and it has, the way the up and the scroll down scroll works, or the way they had this button at the bottom for getting to the home page, and a lot of those things, right? It's all based on how do you make your life simpler for a user, and just that vision and things. So there is a specific stream right now where people even after engineering, they go into user experience designs, right? So they understand how a user would use a certain application, and then how they would do user research. They would go and do and figure out what is the use case, for example, and then try to build some things around that. um, and serverless computing, I already covered, right? It is about, you don't have to worry about where you're hosting the system, right? You just build an app, you deploy it, and you go and tell, okay, give it whatever it needs. And it is the problem of the hosting environment to give the CPU, the RAM, the VPUs, and everything. And depending upon the usage, it will, the things will go up and down. The infrastructure will take care of itself by going up, taking care of, okay, the usage has come down, so maybe I reduce the number of CPUs. If the app is not being used and nobody's using it, everything is shut down, so nobody's charged for that. So depending upon how you're using the system, this is being used, and there's an architecture called Lambda architecture on which a lot of this is built. So you guys can read about that as well, which is again a very, very interesting field in itself. API economy, again, this is more on, I'm sure, people who are in computer science understand what is APIs. Like, you're building services or RESTful services, which can, which you can sell as well. Like Amazon has a lot of services, right? If you have built small, simple services on AWS or, especially, I guess, computer science folks might have, like, you want to say, oh, get me the, there are APIs there which says, um, get me the weather of, for example, this in the cities. There's an API exposed, right? So now if you use that, somebody can host that API, and I can build an API which gives me a specific information about something, and I can host it on any of the cloud platforms. And I can say, if somebody uses this API for something, then you can maybe put 50 paise on my account, something like that, right? So you can host something like that, and and that is another way of that's called API economy, which is where you're hosting APIs, and you're kind of making money, common APIs which can be used across various platforms as utilities, and so forth. So you kind of make that available. And the last is, I think, the mobile development languages. There's lots happening on that. Swift and other languages are getting developed, which are much more faster, because as we see the mobiles getting faster and faster, there's a lot of work happening on how to get more faster languages developed on each of these, on the mobile platform, because that's going to be a very, very important platform for us. Given that is a platform that's being developed most actively at this point of time. And even our laptops and other things are going to become as fast as mobiles. And I think Apple is already coming up with a version which is as good as mobile and other things. So you will see a lot of those trends that is kind of starting to shape up. Now, what did I want to? I mean, this probably is going to be my important slide. So, given that I am from IT, and though I did civil engineering, but you guys can forget, I don't know anything about civil engineering right now. But I probably just studied the last day and passed the examination. But the thing there is that I think in IT, at least, is what I'm going to talk about. So anybody who's kind of interested in getting into the IT side of things, there are a lot of interesting roles that you would see yourself. I mean, of course, they connect to the trends that I talk about, and they connect to the developers, right? In general, you are either an expert on any of the languages or all the languages, and you will want to develop applications like Java, C++, programming languages. So that's where. The thing that's very, very common is automation, which is you're good at automation, like you're good at scripting things, right? Um, how the code is built, how it is deployed, where it is deployed, the entire time that it takes from code to be built to be deployed anywhere anywhere where the code is going to run, right? So that is your automation piece. And some of us like do all the things, right? And if you go and join a smaller company, like you will probably be doing everything, right? But as we go into a big, but I think I would always suggest that people pick roles depending upon the interest, because at certain point of time these roles become very, very specialized, and there are skills which are specifically needed for some of these roles. If it's like you don't become jack of all trades and master of none. So just pick whichever is your focus area, and you can know other things, right? So a lot of, for example, in my team, there are a lot of data engineers, but they do code a lot in Python and other things. But it's not that they don't know Java, right? So they do know Java, because learning a language has become the most simplest thing right now. So, but they're data scientists and data engineers, so they work more with the languages like the Python, or they work with to some extent, they also work with R and some of the other languages that could be used in the data science and the data engineering field. Now, DevOps is again, the whole cloud architecture piece that I was talking about, right? So how you manage the containers, you manage the instances, you can go containers up, down, how many users, and then the pipeline of, if the developer has done any change, how does it go so if I have added a button into my UI tomorrow, then how does this go change into the system? Like, you use all these applications every day, like LinkedIn would have come up with a new app, right? This change has to go into the cloud of the LinkedIn and, get deployed, so that, some of these guys are working on the back in specific skills. Security, very, very key. Security has become super strong important, because as things go more and more cloud, everybody wants security. So, there are various HIPAA, ISO, all of these are various security guidance and guidelines where you have to understand how they're done. They're security expert who go and understand each of these guidances, and then they tell what the company should do as per them. They are security auditors for each of these applications. And this is so there's a lot of work that happens around security from just guidance perspective, especially if you work in banks and others. There's a lot of work that happens. Um, and I'm sure other places as well. Product management consulting is again another super important piece where, I think a lot of people who understand, have great ideas, who want to develop products, create products, have great business sense, and they know how to take this product to the market. A lot of entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs are like everything, right? They can do everything, but but specifically product market has become very, very interesting skill, which I see a lot of people taking up right now, who think that they probably understand the market, the needs of the market, and they can visualize applications far more better, how it should look and all of that. Is become very, very superb. And I don't have the design thing here, but I think I should have had, because product management and design go a lot together, right? They work together in order to build the next generation of products. Because if you leave it to the developers, they will just code everything, right? So it becomes very complicated, and then the product is not user friendly anymore. So you need the product management, the user designers, and other people to create a product which is usable, to create an application which is useful, right? So which is easy, which is you don't have to click 10 places to get to do a one thing, right? You just maybe the number of clicks that you have to do. Like, the user design is all about, how I simplify my application and user experience. So they will even count how many clicks you need to do to complete a specific activity. It's not just building one web page or something, right? So that is what it is about, the user design. So, the reason why, the home button came up in Apple was that, people didn't have to go back in the older mobiles. I don't know if you've used, you have to do back to go to the home page. And they came up with the central home button. So, a lot of these things are about, user design is again very, very critical. And that's where those were the IT roles that I wanted to talk about a little bit. And I think I'll probably spend a few minutes on where IBM focus area is. And then I think we can have questions and answer. So, I mean, IBM has been very, very focused on these three areas. I think we talked about artificial intelligence and machine learning, where even I'm working on a few products which are very, very specific and have some of these things infused into it. So one of my product that I work upon is in the payment fraud area. So it gets a lot of banks have this product working in their backend. So whenever a card is swiped, and you need to decide within that fraction second whether this should be authorized or not. So if you have, for example, done a five, and typically, if it is a simpler lesser number of, the lower the amount, and banks can implement it in different ways. But for example, you typically do transactions of 500, and suddenly one day somebody does a transaction of like 10,000 or 20,000 into your account, so you want to flag it. So this app product works on the backend, and any anomaly that it will see in the behavior of the user, either from an amount perspective, or maybe he usually is in Bangalore and swiping his card from there, and suddenly he is in some godforsaken place in Thailand, and he's swiping his card there with a big amount, or a very weird type of transaction where he transacts like 10 times in a day for bigger amount of money, a not unusual anomaly that was found in the transaction. So now, if you think about this is a very important use case, because in fractions of second, you have to make a decision whether what is the anomaly in the transaction card behavior or in the card behavior, and you have to flag that transaction so that the bank can stop the transaction. So it not only has to use AI and machine learning, because it has to go back and look at all its history data, find the anomaly, and then stop the transaction. So so that becomes super difficult. So, and that is something that we have implemented in the product, and it is it's working on various banks at this point of time. Of course, it has its and we're kind of trying to advance it to do better and better, and some of the other things. Hybrid cloud, we already talked about. So, I think the idea here is, we all know about private and public. Private is what banks or other organizations have within their own IT organization that's not exposed outside. Public is, whatever is exposed outside. Well, IBM, because IBM works with a lot of enterprise customers. When I say enterprise, it is like, like it's not on the B2B type of customers, right? Business to business, like the banks, or on and where it could, the banks could be working with the retails, but more on the core banking and other things, right? So then what happens is, you should be having applications which can work both the ways, right? It could be deployed locally, it can be public friendly as well, public cloud friendly as well. So, our strategy is kind of, depending upon where the customer wants to deploy it, they can deploy it. So we call it a hybrid cloud. Quantum computing, again, has been worked upon for last 15, 20 years. A lot of work has been done. We have started seeing a lot of changes in terms of, completely, quantum computing based out of quantum mechanics, and
Hello, ma'am. I guess there is network issue from your side. You are not audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess ma'am just left and she might be trying to rejoin. Sorry for the disturbance, folks.
Hello.
Yep.
Please don't leave the meeting right now. I'm seeing that many of you are leaving the meeting. Please stay here. I'm getting in touch with ma'am. She might be having some network issue.
Yeah, it's a kind request, guys. Please, like, at least stay till the end. It's not like we are gonna extend it till 5:30. It's gonna wrap soon. You guys can have your queries right about now, and please, whatever query is there, you can write in the chat section, and I will make sure that they are answered.
She's joining.
Meanwhile, everyone can just post their quick queries right in the chat section, and while she joins, she can answer every query of yours. So please don't leave.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Sorry,
ma'am.
I
I
don't
think
know
you're next.
where was I when I stopped?
Um, yeah, sure. The last presentation was your cloud and
Okay.
DevOps. So I hope you
Oh,
can restart from it.
okay. So I've logged in from my mobile. I'm hoping I can log in from the system as well. Something happened, but I think just to get the picture, I think I was talking about the roles, right? Was it there,
Yeah,
Shivam? Okay.
yeah, ma'am.
Okay, so I think I was talking about the roles, and I said about the cloud. Did I talk about all the roles I was, or I
Yeah,
should go
you
where
were
I?
at DevOps.
Okay, so I was at the DevOps, and I was talking about the roles where. So DevOps is typically the role where I was talking about the cloud architecture, where anybody where somebody can look at if the number of users are increasing, or if I have to deploy more number of containers because the number of users are increasing, if I have to increase the CPU, RAM, and other things, manage some of that stuff, or if I'm making any change to the application, then I have to redeploy the change. For example, I've added a button in my UI page, and I have to redeploy the applications, right? So somebody like a developer will add a button and build it and give, and somebody will go and deploy some of those changes to the cloud and other things. So that's more like what you're doing at the DevOps role. I think I talked about data science and data engineer. I think did I cover security? Was
It was right then when your connection dropped.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so security is the other thing, right? Because security is critical when everybody is uh, I talked about that everything was on public, private cloud, everybody was happy, right? Everybody within the bank can look at it. There was nothing, nobody is looking at it from outside. No, even if something would happen, nobody would know anything. And a lot of those bank related cases you find, right? People did all sorts of problems as well. So now suddenly when everything is on the cloud, there's a huge problem, right? Because nobody should be able to access customer data, nobody should be able to. So security has become a big thing in its own way. And then product management and consulting, which is a lot of you would think that you want to start your own company, think about various ways to do this. How do you then develop applications? How do you learn about what is the application that I want to do, how my application should look like, what should be the look and feel, how can I work with the designers. Now user design should be another role here, because a lot of engineers are also taking user designs where they want to kind of develop some of those attributes, right? How does the UI look and feel? Because given with the no code, low code, and all other things, that has become a lot more important. And then I guess did I talk about various IBM focus area? I guess not.
No, ma'am, you haven't.
Yeah, so from the IBM focus area, I think that three focus areas of IBM that IBM is literally focusing on. The one thing very important that IBM is focusing on is AI and machine learning, which I guess everybody knows, and it is importantly focused there. The second thing is on the quantum computing, so you should go and read about what is quantum computing. That's very, very new field and niche areas. And the third is about the cloud, the hybrid cloud and other areas. So I think those are the important areas. I will share my, I think I do, it's already 5. But so Shivam, what we can do is, can we take question and answer, and you can send me on the, either on my mail or anywhere, and I can respond
Yeah,
to, or
ma'am.
people can
If you
share
can,
me on the link.
if you can get access to the chat section in this group, you can find the queries. So You are on your mobile, right? So there is probably an option to see the chats.
Let me see. Let me see.
Let me text. Oh,
Uh, what is roadmap for? What is the chat? Sorry. Can you just read out the question to me?
okay. Yeah, sure. This question comes from Neha Kumari, and she asks, "Ma'am, how difficult is to enter a cloud industry for a fresher?"
It is not at all difficult. I mean, I think, I guess you need to do what you need to do is, try to do some internship with colleges and with companies where you can apply and do some of the initial, maybe if you're in third year or something, uh, you know, and try to do some internship while you're still in colleges with some of these companies and apply and try to get there. And I think most of the for if you are a fresher, most of the time what happens is, when you join a company, they'll train you into something, and you can if you want to, you can pick up some of those areas and get yourself trained too. I mean, it all depends upon where your interest is, right? Typically in IBM, when we do internship, depending upon where when we offer them a role as a job, we see where the interest area is and if they are ready to pick skills on that, because we typically allow only students who do internship and offer a job to them. And if in internship, when they do with us, they show interest in cloud and they're able to pick those things up, then it's a good area.
Thanks, ma'am. I hope that answers your query, Neha. And the next question comes from Ayush, and he's asking for a roadmap towards machine learning.
Okay, so I think from a machine learning roadmap perspective, as I said, I mean, that's like that's like the important thing, has been the most important thing for like last few years already. um, and you will see, as I was talking about, there's lots of AI infusion each and every happening in every industry. Who I mean, you have seen the example of Uber, which is getting as the application which uses AI and ML, right? And who would have thought a taxi service would use AI and ML? So you can think that future roadmap, everything will be using AI and ML, of course, in its true sense, with precaution and caution and everything, because there is a lot of data that is needed for AI and ML, and you'll have to generate those data, use those data, and there's a lot of security also aspects about how we use that data.
I guess the next question comes from Mona Bharti, and she is asking what could be a best beginning as a data analytics learner.
I think what you should do is try to do small courses in data science and some of these fields in Coursera or some of the other places that would help.
Yeah, I hope that's quite the easy roadmap there. And a query from my side is that we often see that, as you said in the beginning, that the banks were not uh, favor- favoring the idea of putting their whole data in a cloud system. So
Mm.
people generally like lose the confidence that what they have learned is quite up to the mark or not.
Mm.
So they like keep on switching the topics. As you said, they
Mm.
try to become the jack of all trades.
Mm.
So how hard was it to like maintain the faith that you have learned could be useful for that particular role and getting a job out of it?
So I'll tell you one thing, Shivam, and everybody here should know about this, is that self-learning is the most important way that everybody, all of us, have to start learning. Because one thing that has taught us is that, we do not are in classes anymore. Everybody is learning from the web. The kids are learning to code. And very soon, a lot of them, I think one thing that has worked very well during pandemic for a lot of people has they have understood their credibility to learn faster and online without the teachers, and they think that they can still do that without and with little help from teachers, right? So I think self-learning is the most important thing. And then, and I mean, if you're ready to self-learn, then you can pick up a lot of that. So I think, Shivam, I do have to jump to another call, but feel free to find me on the LinkedIn and push a question. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, ma'am. And we just
Thank
have a
you.
short thank you note from Aisha. And
Yeah. So now the seminar has ended. So I would like to thank our guest speaker, Ms. Shweta Shandilia, for making an excellent presentation,
Yeah.
making the seminar very meaningful and interesting for all of us.
Thank you.
I'd like to express our deep gratitude to the training and placement cell for their presence in the seminar also. And thank you, wonderful students who have turned up with such great numbers. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
it
Bye.
was wonderful having you, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye.
So I hope all your questions were answered, and we would be having the recording posted on our socials. And for anyone who wants to like revisit the channel source, they can just jump in right over there. Links will be shared later on. And stay safe. Bye. We are dropping the call right about now.